When I was coming up the stairs just now, it was quiet in the room. And even though there was either nobody or almost nobody in the room at that time, when I was coming up the stairs, just coming through the door where it suddenly got quiet, I felt like I was coming into church, or even though you weren't all here yet, there was something about the recognition of what happens when people come together in acknowledgement that there's much more going on than what we usually occupy ourselves with. And the silence is where that's most palpable. And so I want to welcome you and say how I appreciate that you're here and that you care for yourself in this way. Why don't we just sit for a bit? Feel that stripped down thing that you're here. I don't mean in this room. I mean that you exist. Rest in that. Whatever's happened before right now is completely gone, including your ride here, the food you just swallowed, if you just swallowed food. Every single bit of your past is retrievable now only as a thought. If you've had stress today, or hurrying, or worry, know that part of you that can experience those things is not the one that will become free. It's not equipped to become free. There's something in you that has never experienced suffering, subtle or magnificent. It's utterly still. So if you feel the residue in your body, in your mind, of anything that happened before right now, any kind of strain or tension, realize that it belongs to a person that is made up. You don't have to do anything with these things. Just see that it's there. And see if you can sense the space around it. Everything you've ever experienced has occurred in a vast space. And that space is what you are. The space that is your nature has never wanted anything. It's never believed anything. It's never been discontent. And if your mind is going haywire over this, just see that that's all the mind can do. You don't need to convince the mind of anything. What are you before you have a thought? during our time together, but maybe for the rest of your life, I want to invite you to do something, or rather not to do something. We're used to thinking of ourselves as being, I'm here, and I have an inner life that only I am privy to, so it seems separate from what's out there, what I'm observing or doing but in a moment when you're really there, you're really aware, it can come about, and you've probably had this experience maybe many times, that it feels as if what's going on in here is no different from what's going on out there, in the sense of that it's available to your awareness. When you don't make a distinction between whatever's going on in here, thinking, physical sensation, emotion, there's something happening, and there's something happening. There's always something happening around us, so we're doing something. What this and this share is they're happening in the now. That's the only time anything ever happens. The fact that it appears to be inner and outer is a useless separation. Because this is invisible to other people, and because we can pretend to be feeling different from how we really are, or because I can have a thought but decline to say it, there's something about the invisibility of this in here, and that we often feel bad about what's going on in here, especially if you're trying to evolve. That encourages the experience of the inner now seeming on a separate plane of awareness from what's going on out here or what I'm doing, the outer thing. And it's a useless distinction. What does that do? One thing is it makes it so I can deny what's going on in here. It's harder to deny what's out there. Other people see it, your senses don't lie to you and all that. We lie to ourselves all the time. So what this is really an invitation to do is to observe what's going on in here with the same unfiltered awareness that you would bring to what you're observing. And when you do that, without dropping it into the plus or the minus column, I like that I'm feeling this way, I don't like that I'm having this thought, I wish that I felt better, or, when you can, this is a radical thing. And it's not just radical because it's different from the norm, it's radically illuminating. When you can look at what's going on in your interior in a completely soft way, and by that I mean absolutely without judgment, just an acknowledgement that it's occurring. It's simply occurring, just like the outer thing is occurring. Without trying to stop anything or wince at it, then do you begin to really know yourself, the self that's keeping you from knowing the truth of what you are. And until we're willing and able to do that, we will stay lost. So if what you've been about is trying to manage your interior or improve it, it's a total waste of time. That's not what freedom is about. For one thing, the thing that you're trying to improve will never be improved all the way to free. It's in the way. It's why we aren't free. So you see, when you're uncomfortable with what you're observing in here, or you're trying to change it or fix it, you're absolutely wasting your time. You must get over it if you want to really get somewhere. Everybody does it for a while, most everybody, but there's something past it. So, while we're together, and maybe for the rest of your life, see if you can learn to not make that distinction between inner and outer, but rather see what it has in common, which is that it's what's happening right now. And that's all we ever have, isn't it? What's happening right now. As soon as we become aware of it, it's become a teacher. But as soon as I try to avoid it or manipulate it or something, everything shuts down. Everything useful shuts down. And by useful, I mean something that has the, where there's light and air, that has the ability to show us something that can actually begin to change things. Hi. There are chairs in those, underneath those cushions if you want a chair, and there are cushions too. So, for instance, during this time, you might have a tendency to have your awareness out there. Somebody's saying something, or you're eating a meal, but I'm really inviting you to have your awareness equally in here all the time, that you can remember to do that. And if you have a tendency to judge yourself or to try to do something with it, notice that you're doing that. So for instance, when we were meditating and there was sound downstairs, if you were aware of the sound and having thoughts about it, or irritated or anything, or maybe you were just noticing it as sound and you didn't have any story about it, or maybe you weren't even noticing it. But if you were, just observe everything that's happening in there as a phenomenon. Be absolutely transparent to yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? If you hear somebody say something and you think, oh, that's really lame, notice that you're having this thought, oh, that's really lame. Skip the next step of saying, oh, I shouldn't think that thought. So what's happening inside you constantly is every bit as rich and instructive and illuminating and real as anything anybody else is saying, or, If something comes to you while we're together, or maybe for the rest of your life, you have suddenly an insight, like you really got something that you thought maybe you got before, because you've read it in 20 books. But you know the difference. And everybody's had this. Suddenly, there's a gong going off in your body. And you go, oh, that's what that means. When that happens, the mind will often want to get hold of it and say, oh, I've got to remember this. Or I can't wait to tell so-and-so about this. Or, you might want to write it down. You don't need to do that. When the gong goes off in your body, it's because you recognize the truth of the thing that you've always deeply known. And all that's just happened is that the fact that you know it has come high enough in your consciousness for you to see it and say, in effect, yeah. The only reason it means anything to you is that you already knew it somewhere in you. You don't need to remember these things. What is it that wants to remember? It's the mind that enjoys collecting things, and ego wants to feel good about itself and all that, but so please don't take notes. Please don't take notes. And if it's killing you not to, look at that. Wow, what is that? Feel the feeling of that, wanting to, investigate it. Look at that. We will write a little bit tomorrow, I think. But it's a different kind of writing. It's not note-taking writing. And trust yourself, If something really gets you, like you deeply recognize the truth of it, you can't unknow that anymore. It may not always be in your conscious awareness. It doesn't matter. When you really get something, you're not the same person you were a moment before you really got it. So as you move forward in whatever life dishes up and whatever further developments there are and disasters and insights and all the rest of it, that thing that you really got will be there with you, whether or not you remember it consciously. Remember, this whole thing, that's why we're here, is about finally coming home to what you really are. There's nothing new about it. There's nothing new about it. So, anything that's worth a damn, you're not going to learn as a new thing. It's not like a class. It's not like academics. It isn't your mind that knows it anyway. That's nice. I'll say a few more logistical things. There's a camera there. And you need to know two things about that. First is, if you need to get up while we're, here, you have to go to the bathroom or something, please don't walk in front of the camera. So go that way. And the other thing for you to know is, there will be times when I'll invite you to share or ask questions if you want to do that. And the recording won't be happening then, just so you know that. I don't want anybody to hold back because of that. So I just want you to know that. What else? So we will have designated times for questions and sharing. And I'll be, that won't happen tonight, but it will tomorrow and Sunday. And I'll be letting you know when those times come. So in the meantime, if there's something bubbling up in there, just let it bubble. And just know that there will be time for it if it keeps bubbling later. Okay? I'll say more about that later. If I ask you, when is your birthday? Or where were you born? What part of yourself do you use to answer that question? And now I'm inviting you to say something. Just say it. Yeah, your mind. You have to go into your thinker and visit the subject of your history, the beginning of your history. If you are putting wood in the wood stove and touch a piece of burning wood and it hurts, what part of you what part of you registers the pain? I don't mean the word pain. What in you is able to experience that it hurts? Do you need your mind for that? Yeah. The body, it hurts. Your mind can say, oh, pain, oh, touch the wood in the wrong place, oh, damn, ouch, and then the words. But the very first thing that recognizes, that has that experience, different from what turns on to know what is my birth date, is the body, physical sensation. What in you knows, experiences that you exist? Say it again. Awareness. Can you see that that's different from the mind that remembers when your birthday is? The mind is the part of us, the function that the ego uses to assemble itself on the fly constantly. The mind cannot directly experience the now, cannot directly experience that you be. It can observe things about it, it can, in a secondary way, it can understand and come up with language for any phenomenon you can pitch it, right? But the thing that actually directly experiences, when you're looking in somebody's eyes or all this stuff is going on all the time. I mean, we're a mishmash constantly, every moment we live, of physical sensation, thinking, processing, awareness, which is sensory largely, all of this stuff is going on all the time. So here we come to the blessing of neutral observation of what's going on in here. We are vastly equipped, human beings are. There's so many ways we have of knowing something. And that in us that's free cannot be known by the mind. And a huge amount of what passes for spiritual work consists of the mind trying to touch that cannot be reached or known by the mind. So if I'm doing that, and I see that I'm doing that, I'm trying to figure it out, trying to remember a great experience I had. If I'm aware that I'm doing that, it then becomes possible to rest from it. That in us that's already free recognizes itself. It can feel itself being there. That's what it is to sense yourself existing. It's knowable only by itself. It's not knowable by the thing that can know that we're in Shutesbury or what your birthday is. We have the experience of directly knowing, encountering all the time, and we don't even notice it's happening. It's why being quiet is so rich and valuable. Because when it's happening, you're much more likely to notice it. So it's like this thing that we are is constantly looking for ways to leak through to our conscious awareness. When awakening happens, it's not that you suddenly have this capacity that you didn't have all along. It's really crucial that you, if you've been telling yourself, this isn't something that I will have or be or experience unless and until I wake up, you're doing a number on yourself. What happens at awakening that's different from before is not that suddenly you have this utterly still, neutral capacity that's like space and light. It's that your sense of what you are has changed. You've gone from believing that you are your thoughts and your history and your traits and your beliefs and all that. You've gone from deeply believing that's what you actually are, feeling that that's what you are. It's not just believing. You completely identify with it. You've gone from that to, for some mysterious reason that we almost never know what happened, why, we're not in control of it. For some reason, that no longer actually feels like what you are. What feels like what you are is fill in the blank. Spaciousness, emptiness. That literally feels like what you are. This is not something you can talk yourself into. People will, there's a lot of – language and ideas and, people tossing off ideas about how I know that's not who I really am, and it's completely useless because all it is a thought. The thing that, whatever your attention is on, whatever seems to matter to you in this stuff, whatever you're focusing on as you're, it feels like the next thing you need to do, or it feels like the hurdle you need to get over, or the thing you need to heal from or let go of, whatever it is, you can assume there's something else going on. Don't trust that you know what you're doing. In fact, trust that you don't know what you're doing. It looks like this whole thing is about where you're looking from, what you're looking with. And what we habitually do is, I'm looking at, whether it's myself or something out there, my life, but usually it's something to do with us. It seems like, so the eyes are on the front of the head. You can't see back here. Whatever way you aim, and I'm talking about attention here, I'm talking about effort and focus and what you think matters. Wherever you're standing, that's the only place you can look from. And wherever you're aiming, that's the only way you can look. You can't see over here, you can't see back there. You can't see your eyes, okay? We think whatever we're focused on, which is usually some angst, that's the important thing, or it feels like the whole world to us while we're caught up in it. Meanwhile, if something could occur, some fluky, lucky, miraculous, wonderful thing, it would cause you suddenly, instead of looking at that, I'm standing here aiming there, my eyes are there. Instead of that, something knocked me sideways and caused me to look at the same thing in here, but from a different angle. Or caused, like I fell backwards and suddenly became aware of the thing that had been doing the looking, or the angle that it had been looking from. That's when something really happens. We don't know what we're doing. We think we know what we're doing. The more flexible you're able to be, the more comfortable you are with saying, I don't know, I really don't know, and I'm really not in control. The more willing we are to not assume that we know what we're doing. It's like the whole world opens up then. But we want so much to feel like I'm on a path, I'm going this way, and I'm in control of it. It's madness. It's just going around in circles. When something happens, you wake up and you literally do not take anything about your dear old familiar self seriously anymore. It's not that you figured anything out. It's not that you healed, recovered, went through all the layers that people think have to be gone through. That's not what happened. What happened is something knocked you so you're standing over here now and looking this way. Or there's eyes back there looking at this whole thing. Not these eyes, but the eyes that can, it's like what happens when you're thinking, you're deep in, some story, obsessive something. What happens? What is going on when you suddenly are outside the whole thing, watching yourself doing it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you had this experience? What's doing that? Is that the same? What can see the whole phenomenon? Is that the same thing that knows when your birthday is? No. But something can see it. Something can get outside, and you know, can you deliberately do that? I don't know, but sometimes it just happens. If you leave yourself open to the possibility that it could happen, at the very least, the thing we can do sometimes is go from being completely caught up in the thought to realize maybe I'm, like, what happens is being caught up in thought generates uncomfortable emotion usually. That's what gets our attention. We don't like to feel bad. We really like to feel good. So if something gets my attention, you know, God, I'm all caught up in fear here, for instance, or I'm angry or something. And then I realize, oh, maybe my thoughts had something to do with this. The light goes on. Well, so if I've been engaging with the material of my thoughts as if they matter, which is, we do this all the time, right? Gotta get back at so-and-so, or figure out what to do, or, you know, as if the thing we're thinking about is the thing that matters. It's never the thing that matters. Just never. So the moment that we become aware that I'm doing this, I'm actually doing this. Basically, I'm not inside the little room there anymore. I'm back here somewhere. And then you ask yourself once in a while, once a month, ask yourself, what is it that's able to see me thinking? What in me is able to see that this is happening? You want to know what you are? You want to be free of all the horseshit? That's the place to get. So when you are with other people, like say somebody in your family, or somebody you don't get along very well with, or somebody that you don't think much of, or somebody that doesn't think much of you, or somebody on the other side of the political spectrum. You look around at other people and look at yourself in that context, and you see enormous difference, right? I mean, we do not appear to be like one another, do we? Not even in this room, where we allegedly have something deeply important in common. The thing that gets our attention typically, well, what is self-esteem about, or being thought well of? It's all, we're constantly comparing ourselves with one another, or just noticing differences, even if you don't turn it into better and worse. We've all had different experience. We've all had hugely different histories, and we've been affected by it, and we've been made into who we are, apparently, largely because of the different kind of experience we've had. When your awareness is on the level, when you're thinking about yourself, trying to make things better, or just imagining how somebody else sees you, or wanting to put yourself in a good light because you're going on Match.com and you want to figure out what you're, how to portray yourself or how to introduce yourself. When you're dealing with yourself, in a way that has to do with the ways you're different from anybody else, you're wasting your time, spiritually speaking. So if you have anger issues, or you've had a really difficult history you're trying to recover from, or any of it, pick your issue. I could ask each of you to get a very large bucket and write on a little piece of paper each thing that's about you that's maybe not like everybody else, and all of our buckets would be full. I could just dump it all. The level on which you need to be exploring yourself, learning about yourself, is the level on which we're all exactly the same. And the ego goes, what could that possibly be? Otherwise, you really are wasting your time. So how are we all just alike? We've all had unique experience, but we've all been affected by our experience. We've all been shaped in some way by whatever's happened. It completely doesn't matter what's happened. Ego doesn't like that at all. But no, my history is so precious. I've suffered terribly, worse than anybody else. If you want to be free, you have to get below that. You have to get to where you're in the same boat everybody else is in. That we are conditionable. We are profoundly conditionable. And the evidence is all over. When you look around at how everybody's different, there it is. The fact that I have an experience, and this is, it's still happening. Conditioning isn't just what happened when you were 3. It's been happening all week. Okay? It'll keep happening. So the fact that I'm, in an experience and it's affecting me in a way that it alters chances I'm willing to take, things that I believe are true, not true, grudges I tend to carry away from the experience, it's all ongoing. What is it like? What is it like to have to really be there for life, moment after moment after moment, and come away absolutely clean and light, and not be stained, not be heavier than you were before? So you can watch yourself, and please do, God, if you want to really get somewhere, watch yourself be affected. Watch the burden you carry away. Watch how when you have a difficult experience and you come away from it, it's eating at you, or you feel puffed up because things went well. Don't be bothered that this occurs. Don't wish it didn't. Just watch that it does. And you see, lights go on. If you were to, God, this would be a nightmare, but if you were to record everything that goes on in your mind for 24 hours and could listen to it and say everybody else in this room or in your family or also could record everything that went on in their head for 24 hours. And then, say you pick 10 at random, it wouldn't matter who the people were, it completely wouldn't matter. You listen to, those 24-hour loops, your own, and 9 other people. They'd be absolutely, each of them would be unique, wouldn't it? The content, completely particular to the person. And in fact, if you had a 24-hour loop of your own head, say for the next year, every day, and then you could stand to listen to it the following year, every single day would be different from the day before, wouldn't it? It'd be 365 different, there'd be a lot of overlap. We know there's a lot that repeats, but. So, the thinking thing is always going on for everybody. And it each looks absolutely unique, even from day to day. But what do we all have in common? That the thinking is going on, and that we believe what we're thinking. right? Don't we? Mostly? Almost all the time? Even if this really matters to you, you're here tonight, this weekend. So, don't get caught up in the content of your thought. It's completely irrelevant. Completely. It's way more irrelevant than you can stand to know. But what's really relevant is that you believe it. Over and over and over again. What do we do? And so every one of those awful 24-hour loops has this fundamental thing in common. We think up the thoughts and we believe them. Everybody does it all day long. And you wonder why you're not free. So you want to get somewhere with it. People get all tied up in, I'm having negative thoughts. I should replace them with positive thoughts. Or trying to think, are my thoughts true? Well, they sure do seem true. It's a total waste of time. Total. But what's really not a waste of time is to see, I'm doing this. I'm making these thoughts, and then I'm believing them. We all have, you can't find a person. You couldn't look into the eyes of anybody on this planet that doesn't do that or hasn't done it. And when you know that, when you really get that, and that's where your attention should be, on the baseline phenomenon that you do that, then you look around at other people and realize, oh my God, they're all doing it too. Even the people, even your mother-in-law, or somebody that you have trouble getting along with. When you suddenly realize, even the people that have, even the terrorists, we're all doing it. How can you be high and mighty after that? How can you be judgmental? How can you dignify yourself or dignify somebody else, because of the alleged differences between us? Now, when you begin to encounter yourself on this level, no longer so interested in the validity of the thought or whether it's positive or negative or, oh my God, stop spinning your wheels. When you get to where you're just observing that you are thinking and that you tend to believe the thoughts, oh my God. This is the kind of thing that causes real significant change to occur in a person. And all the other stuff that's exhausting, isn't it exhausting? Trying to stop thinking, or trying to, recover, or deny that you're feeling pissy when you're feeling pissy, or find the right bunch of beliefs to believe in. Change yourself. If you're trying to change yourself at all, please rest from it. What you need to do is back up. Stop looking so close in at, the stuff that seems to matter. Just keep backing up, saying, or shift your perspective a little bit. Consider that wherever you're looking from, or whatever you seem to think is true, consider that you're wrong. Consider that there's more going on. There's another place to orient to yourself. And, and every time you think you've got something figured out, enjoy it for 10 seconds and then forget about it. You really may have something figured out. I mean, when we really get something, that gong going off inside, it is important. But But after that, now, with that having been recognized, there's whole new terrain now. There's all new stuff. You're a new person. The new stuff that you couldn't have gotten before. So don't sit on your duff and say, "Oh, great, I get the whole thing now." All that's happened because of whatever just occurred is that now, your angle just changed a little tiny bit. And so if you couldn't, before that thing happened, you couldn't have seen the next thing. You couldn't, you've become, it's like we all have this incredible equipment. And most of it is like dead wood. There's no air or blood getting to it. But when the deep insight comes, or suddenly you feel, oh my God, I've been doing this on purpose. Oh my God. It's like blood suddenly is flowing to some part of you that's never felt moist and warm before. And it can begin to function. We're not in charge of this. We are not in charge of any of it. But by God, it does happen. And suddenly you realize something that mattered to you so much before, it suddenly isn't mattering so much. Or things just feel a little bit easier, a little bit softer, and that's wonderful. And I don't go around having a lot of ideas about this kind of thing, but I have to say, something in me keeps getting the impression that there's a really benign, really loving thing going on that wants us. It's like, so bad wants us to not suffer. And maybe it's just something deep in us. I'm not going to come up with a pretty story about, I don't know, but it's like something seems to be cheering us on. But it knows better than we know. That's the thing. Or even if there isn't an it, we don't know. That much is really clear. We don't know how any of this happens. All we can do is get out of the way and not try to manage things, but be absolutely willing to be soft and caught off guard and wrong. It's the exact opposite of everything else we've ever tried to do. Everything we've worked hard on, applied ourselves, a certain focused kind of energy. It's not like that. It's exactly the opposite. It's about falling and tripping and giving up. That's why surrender is so powerful. It's saying, okay, I quit. It's not a coincidence that's when a lot of doors end up opening. It's when somebody really finally has just had it and gives up. There are these things you may have seen, some of you maybe have seen them before, around the room, and I'll say things about them at some point, but I'm inviting you to look at them. They're in an order. That one that's up high is kind of an overview, and then going from left to right, you'll see there's a kind of a progression. I don't want to say too much about it right now, but I will more later. And I really, it's something I I had kind of floating around in my head or someplace for a while, and I hesitated to put it in this formulaic thing here. It's like, in an order, and there's categories, and it's like an orgy for the mind. And that's what kept me actually from doing it for a long time. But I did it anyway because I think it could be useful in a way. I want to say something about silence. There are going to be times this weekend when I'll ask you to be in silence during a break or during a meal. And first of all, in this room, I think you probably saw the signs coming in. When you start up the stairs, every single time, please be silent. I'm not talking about the noise of your feet, although you probably want to have your shoes on. So once you're coming into the room, and the whole time we're here until you back down the stairs, and maybe even after that at times, I want it so that when you come in here, you can hear your own silence, even if you weren't already. And so please respect that. It's a way of respecting yourself. And it's not just respecting other people. It's yourself. It's holy. Something holy in us. And whispering doesn't count as silence. And that's why I'm saying include yourself in this. It's an honoring thing. So if you're whispering with your friend, that's out of consideration for other people who maybe want to be in silence. But I'm asking you to be in silence too. And it's probably not too uncomfortable when we're in here in this setting, but sometimes it, like during a meal, we're so not used to this. And partly why I think it's great to have these experiences of silence in the company of other people is you get to feel how uncomfortable it is. Maybe it won't be uncomfortable, but maybe it will. We're so used to, what happens when we get social? It's like, I reform myself, my ego self, you reform yourself, and our formed selves interact with each other, and and that's largely accomplished by talking. And when there's silence, the stuff is going on, but only in the interior. So then you can see it, you can feel the discomfort that that usual outlet isn't there. I'm not asking you not to look at each other. Some people, when they have silence at a retreat, that it's mandated that you not have eye contact. God, let's be aware of each other, and we can be kind to one another, and maybe even laugh. Really look at each other. Maybe, touch each other even, if you're, But see what it feels like to be with one another, stranger or, your pal, without having the conversation. I'm not going to ask that you do it all the time, but sometimes I will, and see what it feels like. And if it's uncomfortable, notice what's uncomfortable about it. Like, who are you when you're not talking? Or who is the other person when you're not hearing what's up with them, And if you're staying here, or even if you're staying elsewhere, but in a room with other people, consider tonight, after we're finishing here in a few minutes, and you maybe go to your room, consider having a conversation with your roommates about whether you would like to be silent in the room. And maybe, and it's not like everybody has to agree, maybe 2 of you want to be silent. Well, it wouldn't work too well if there are 2 who want to talk, otherwise you'd be talking to yourself, which we do all the time anyway. But I'm just saying, you don't have to have a common agreement. If there's 3 of you in the room and only 1 of you wants to be silent, okay, you can be silent, and the other 2 people can be talking. I'm just saying, consider it. Consider it for in your room, and you don't get like points for this. Really, and keep an eye on that. It's like, it doesn't make you better if you're in a room that's silent and the other people are in there talking. It's funny. It is funny because this is what we think, but it's like an exploration. It's an opportunity to see the discomfort, but also, God, it's sweet in there, isn't it? Why do we meditate? What's that about? I mean, the poet W.H. Auden? He says, he has a line in a poem, we are afraid of pain, but we're more afraid of silence. Because one thing is, when we get silent outwardly, it gets really noisy in here, doesn't it? It's always been really noisy in here, but we can't hear for the racket we're making out here. So if I shut up, which I'm going to do here in a few minutes, then I really and don't judge yourself. Whatever you observe going on, it's like, give up, just forget the whole thing, that there's a certain way you ought to be. It's a total waste of time. What you want to listen for is what's actually happening, what's actually going on in there. Don't try to talk yourself out of it. Don't try to correct it. It's a good way to keep going around in circles forever. Just observe it. Remember, the thing in you that's already there has no interest in any of it. It doesn't judge you. It couldn't care less about your angst. So if you're judging what you see going on in there, you're just scoring points for the same old miserable team. If you're judging yourself, see that you're judging yourself. I want to be saying logistical things. It's a good thing I write stuff down. Breakfast, we hope, is at 8. But it'll be when it'll be. And we'll start here at 9. And I really, truly, really, truly want us to start on time. So please don't come late. Really. I heard about Jeannie Zandy locking the door. I'm not going to lock the door, but again, it's a respect for yourself and for others. If something happens and breakfast doesn't happen till 8:30, obviously we have to adjust. But each time I really want us to start on time. And so what we'll do, and like for instance, if the designated amount of time for a bathroom break turns out truly not to be enough, we'll adjust. But so this is not about being rigid in a way that's going to cause everybody discomfort. I don't want that. I don't want to be part of that. It's going on all over the place all the time anyway. But I do want us to be clear that if there's adequate time for food and the bathroom and so on, then we really do come back on time. It's distracting to people that are already here if there's somebody coming in late. So what we'll do, I guess, I don't know. So breakfast is at 8, we hope, and then we're going to start at 9. And so let's say I'll ring the gong. Is 10 minutes before 9, is that enough time to say 10-minute warning, finish up the meal, bathroom, whatever you got to do to get here by 9? Is 10 minutes good? Is it? What do you think? Okay, so that's what we'll do. And, Sirius likes to have quiet hours between 11 and 6. So we should remember that both nights. So if you are talking, please just be mindful of the time. If you're up before 6 o'clock, more power to you if you want to talk. No, I'm kidding. I know one thing I want to say. Probably everybody has a cell phone or something else like that with you. And you know how we get compulsive about checking for messages and texting and computer and all that? If you're here for the weekend, and most of you are, or you're devoted to this for the weekend, probably there will be times in there when you really do need to check for messages or send a message or listen to voice or something, but keep an eye on the compulsivity about it. You know, each time you're thinking of doing it, ask yourself, do I really need to do this? And if the answer is no, don't. You know what I'm saying? This is sort of in the spirit of silence. And if you are feeling that compulsivity, or you're feeling you're jonesing because you haven't checked for messages for, feel what that feeling is. Oh. Don't judge yourself for it. Just notice what, the addictive quality of it, or like what did we do before we had cell phones? How did we stand it? Or before we had computers, if you're old enough to remember that. So, do you know what I mean? So, every time we take a break to go to the bathroom, please don't do it in here, no matter what. But you don't have to check for messages every time you go to the bathroom. You really don't. Unless for something about your circumstances dictates that you really do need to, and then of course, do it. And please be away from other people when you do it if you can. Let's see. Okay. Oh, and the schedule for the weekend is on the table. You know when you came in downstairs, kind of like right in front of you where Yaja was? There's a schedule there. And I'll say each time, what the next little bit of time is. But if you need to know in other times, just please look there. And there will be time tomorrow for questions and sharing and all that. So, tonight, when you're doing whatever you're doing, getting your bed fixed, or driving home if you're going home, or brushing your teeth, going to the bathroom, looking at yourself in the mirror, changing your clothes, it's like, God, if it was your last night, every little thing you did would be precious, wouldn't it? Pay attention. It's like, you're beloved. You are beloved. Take your time. Stop every once in a while and feel what it feels like to feel yourself just being. Just, God, I can tell I'm here. I mean, you don't have to put words or thoughts to it, but pay attention. God, it's a miracle. It's just a miracle. Never mind your problems. It doesn't matter. Your problems. You'll always have problems. Okay. Good night.